Hi everyone, today we are going to start the study guide for 10.1 to 10.3 quiz. If you are a remote learner, please remember that you are expected to take your quiz during your scheduled geometry period. So question 1 is all about definitions. So let's describe each of these terms. Segment DE. So segment DE is now highlighted in purple, and what definition would that be? Well, it goes from the center to the outside of the circle, so we have a radius. Next, we have line AB. So since it's a line that goes through the circle, we know that we have a secant. Next, we have segment HJ, which is right here, and this would be a chord. Line FG, so line FG is right here, and you notice that it's a line that touches both these circles in one spot, which means it's a common tangent. Next, we have segment CE, which is right here, and this would be a diameter. Point D is right here, and we see that that is the center of the circle. Line JK is here. So it's a line that just touches the circle in one spot, so this is a tangent. And finally, point J is right here, which we see is on the tangent, and it's the point where the tangent hits the circle, so that is the point of tangency. Next, we're going to find each arc measure. If we look at our picture here, we notice that this measure here is 36, and this measure here is 88. Now, before I focus on these questions over here, I'm going to keep looking at my circle, and I want to fill in these blank spaces, or these blank measures. So let's start by solving for this measure here. Well, if I look at XZ, I notice that this is a diameter because it goes through the center point V, meaning that all three of these added together is going to give me 180 degrees. So I can find the measure of X. So we know that X plus 36 plus 88 is going to give us 180, and we end up getting that X is equal to 56. Now if I look at this picture again, I notice another diameter here, which means that when I add up all of these angle measures, I'm also going to get 180 degrees. So let's call this Y. So we have 56 plus 88 plus Y is equal to 180. And we end up getting that Y is equal to 36. So now there's just one more arc measure that I need to solve for, and it's this arc, or this measure, angle measure right here. And I know that the angles in a circle equal 360. And so when I solve for, let's call this Z or V, when I solve for that angle, I end up getting 144. So now that I have all of my missing angles filled in, now let's look at the arc lengths. So the first one is W, X, Y. So W, X, and Y is this arc right here. So I'm just going to add up 56, 36, 144. And when I do so, I get 236. Next, let's look at TXY. TXY is this arc here. So this time I'm going to add up 36 and 144. And when I do so, I get 180. The third arc measure is arc WX. Now we have to be careful here. Since there's only 2 letters, we know this is a minor arc, and minor arcs are less than 180. So the only arc I'm looking at is this one here, WX. And so I'm going to add up 56 and 36, and I end up getting 92. Arc ZY is also a minor arc, so we're just looking at this one, which is just 36. Next, we want to find arc ZWX. So ZWX, I'm going to add up 88, 56, and 36. And once again, I get 180. And the last arc measure we want to look for is XWY. So XWY, we're going to add up 36, 56, 88, and 36, and we end up getting 216. Name a major arc and a minor arc for circle V. So major arc is an arc that's greater than 180 degrees, and if we look at our answers here, we have a few. We have this one right here. This would be a major arc. We have this one right here. This would be a major arc. And then a minor arc is an arc that's less than 180. So I'll do a triangle here. We know that this one is a minor arc. And I'll do triangle here. We know this is a minor arc. Question number 3. Points K and M are points of tangency. We want to find X. All 3 of these are our ice cream cone problems, and we know that the cones on the ice cream cone are congruent. So for A, I'm going to set these 2 equations equal to each other. So I get 4x plus 7 is equal to 7x minus 8. When I simplify this, I end up getting 15 is equal to 3x, and 5 is equal to x. For B, same thing. I want to set those sides of the ice cream cone equal to each other. And this gives me 3x squared minus 10 is equal to 17. Add 10 to each side. 3x squared is equal to 27. Divide by 3. X squared is equal to 9. And I want to do the square root of both sides. And for this, I'm going to get 2 answers. The square root of 9, if you plug that in your calculator, you will get 3. But remember, the square root of 9 is also negative 3. And finally, part C, I know that these 2 segments are once again congruent. So let's set them equal to each other. So I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 3x. 3x. We'll notice that we have 3x on both sides of the equal sign, so those cancel out, and I'm left with 2x squared minus 2 is equal to 0. Now this looks a little weird, but I can still solve for x here by adding 2 to each side, and that gives me 2x squared is equal to 2. Divide by 2 on each side. X squared is equal to 1, which means the square root of 1, we know that x is going to equal positive 1 as well as negative 1. Question 4, we want to solve for x. If we look at this diagram, we know that x is the radius. So here's an x and here's an x. To solve this problem, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. I'll use x for a, so a squared would be x squared, plus, let's use 32 for b, So that's 32 squared is equal to, now this is where we have to be careful. This is our hypotenuse. So since our hypotenuse is made up of the radius, which is x, and then this little portion here, which is 16, we know that our c value or hypotenuse is going to be x plus 16, and we're going to square that number. So let's simplify this. X squared is going to stay as x squared. 32 squared is 1,024. For this problem here, x plus 16 squared, I'm going to need to write x plus 16 twice. So x plus 16 times x plus 16. And I'm going to need to FOIL. So let's keep this side of the equal sign the same. I know that x times x is x squared. X times 16 is 16x. 16 times x is 16x. And 16 times 16 is 256. Now there's a lot going on here, but one thing that I notice on both sides of the equal signs are these x squareds, and we know that those cancel. I also see on this side that I have x's that I can combine together. So let's simplify this all together. I have 1,024 is equal to 16x plus 16x is 32x plus, don't forget about that 256. Subtract 256 from each side. I have 768 is equal to 32x. Divide by 32, we get 24 is equal to x. So the radius of this triangle is 24. Question 5 here, how many common tangents do the circles have? For part A, we have 2 common tangents. For part B, we have 4 common tangents. And for part C, we have 3 common tangents. Number 6, determine whether segment AB is tangent to the circle. Show your work that supports your answer. All right, so we want to figure out, is this tangent to the circle? Now, if this was tangent to the circle, that means that that angle there would be a 90-degree angle, and we have a right triangle. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem here. Is 3 squared plus 6 squared, is that equal to 7 squared? If yes, it is tangent. If no, then it's not tangent. Well, if we plug this in our calculator, we get that 3 squared plus 6 squared is 45, and we get that 7 squared is 49, and we obviously see that 45 is not equal to 49, so no. AB is not tangent in part A. Let's look at part B here. So I want to see, is this a right triangle? So is 6 squared plus 8 squared equal to 10 squared? If you plug in 6 squared plus 8 squared into your calculator, you see that you get 100, and 10 squared is also 100. So yes, part B, we know that AB is a tangent. For question 7, 2 diameters of a circle A are BC and FD. Well, if I look at this question, I don't have this picture, so I'm going to sketch this out. So I have a circle. I know A is here in the middle, and so I have 2 diameters. Remember, diameter is a chord that goes through the center, so it doesn't matter. I'll call this one BC, and let's call this one DF. So find the given arc measures if the measure of arc BD is 40. So here's my circle, and I now have arc BD written in there. So let's find the measure of DC. Well, since we know that AB is a diameter, then this entire angle measure here is 180. So I can solve for, and I'll call this X, arc DC, by knowing that 40 plus X is equal to 180, which means that X is equal to 140. So arc DC is 140. So now that I have two arcs, I can actually figure out the other two arcs because arc CF is right across from DB, and here's my diameter, so that means that this arc would have to be 40 and this one would have to be 140. So let's answer more of these questions. We can answer BF right away because we see that it's this arc here, so we have 140. Arc BDF would be BDF, so I need to add up 40, 140, and 40, and we end up getting 220. And for our last problem, number 8, we want to solve for X. If you look at this diagram, we notice that those two arcs are congruent, meaning that these two chords are going to be congruent. So to solve for X, I'm just going to set these two equations equal to each other. And this will simplify to 2x is equal to 12, and then x is equal to 6.